our Kickstarter hit its goal within 11 minutes, and we went way over what we were expecting.
Hello and welcome to Why Design. I'm your host Chris White, and this is episode 2 of Series 3. Now this one was recorded in person at Lounge Studios in New York. It's one of 4 episodes recorded at Lounge Studios, and in this one I'm joined by Emilie Williams, co-founder and creative director at Hydrific, a smart home startup that's designing water monitoring tech from the inside of a global organisation, LIXIL. And that's what makes this such a great story. Emilie isn't just leading design, she's helping build a business within a business. So we talk about what it's really like launching a startup inside a corporate giant, moving fast while navigating legacy systems, and why Kickstarter wasn't just a funding tool, but a way to align the team and validate whether anyone even cared. We also get into why the best design opportunities are often in the most overlooked places: plumbing, shower tech, hydration gear. Emilie shows how design can bring joy, storytelling, and even a bit of humour into products most people never even think twice about. You'll also hear some great insight on building cross-functional teams, why empathy is a strategic advantage, and how fun can be a serious business tool. If you're designing connected products, leading inside a big company, or just trying to make complex things feel more human, this one's for you. So let's get into it.
Emilie, really good to see you. Thanks for making the trip over. We're in New York, in Manhattan, I think. Yeah, that's the area that we're in a studio called Lounge Studios. So really awesome space. So great to have you here. But first, just want to say thank you so much for having me in your studio yesterday. So it's great to visit and see you and some of the team. Get a sense of how you're all working together. Give me a bit more context for today. So really looking forward to diving in. But I'll do my best to give that intro. So you're Emilie Williams, co-founder and creative director at Hydrific, which is a connected hardware brand on a mission to help people use water more wisely at home. And you're currently stuck into developing your first product, which is the droplet. And today we're going to go through your design journey, what Hydrific stands for, how you're building something new with a tight-knit team inside a huge organisation, and what you're learning along the way. How did it do?
That was great, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, so yeah, great to have you. As we always start with these podcasts, we start with the question, why design?
But thank you for having me on. This is really fun. It's really interesting to reflect on all of this, and podcasts like yours, there's just not enough of them. They're just so good to dive into. But yeah, why design? This is a good question. I ask myself this daily now. It's one of these things. I don't know if you're just, some people are wired this way. Thinking about when I was a kid, I would look at something and say, why is it like that? Maybe it could be better. Why isn't this more efficient? And I would ask my parents, what is a job where you make something better? And they go, oh, it's engineering. And so that's sort of where I think that all started. And of course, growing up, I was very interested in music. I got interested in the early web design world in the mid-90s. So I started building little websites for things in the early days of the internet. And that quickly turned into design. And I thought I wanted to do like web and graphic design. And there wasn't a ton of majors or things in that area at the time. So I went to college for graphic design, thinking that I would be doing that kind of stuff because I'd been doing it as a kid. And I had like my first internship before college doing that kind of work, working for like a design consultancy right before I started college. And, you know, when I got into design school at graphic design, I realized it was more like print design and like typography and illustration. And I was like, ugh, I don't want to be hunched over a computer all day.
What do you spend most of your day doing now?
Which, you know, didn't quite work out. And, you know, the industrial, I went to NC State, and at the time, it was like architecture on the top floor, landscape architecture right under that. You had some other, then you had like graphic design kind of on the mezzanine. And then in the basement were like the industrial design kids, like covered in Bondo and sawdust. And they looked really stressed out. And he wouldn't go down there. They were scary, and then there were the art and design kids, like in a completely different hall. The art and design kids. You didn't, So I spent, a semester trying to figure out which design discipline I wanted to be in, and I'm like, you know what? Let's do industrial design, and because I like to make things, I like to make stuff, and I think that combo of I like to make stuff, I like to improve on things, and that's sort of been a theme of I just want to make things a little bit better than how I found them, and I think that's kind of the driving force between a lot of what I do, even if it's aesthetic, right? It's a little bit better, but a lot of the work I do is maybe more than just a little bit aesthetic. So
you've got a creativity just at your core, haven't you? And then, like I said, to make stuff is a lot better than just always sitting behind the screen.
And curious about stuff, like why are things the way they are? I think that question of why design is like, why is it like this? And then when you get into industry, you're like, oh, I know why, because somebody had to cost reduce it, and to manufacture it has to have this amount of draft, and here's the reality of wall thicknesses and the way that things are injection molded, or once you learn deep dive into the manufacturing process, you realize how much of that drives the final thing. So as a designer, to get something through the sausage machine of product development, you have to learn all of these different facets, not just, is it a cool product? Is it manufacturable? Does it work? Do people love it? Does it have, desirability? But also, does it make business sense? So you kind of have to have all these little facets to just get something on the market.
Yeah.
So.
And why is it's like a layered thing as well, isn't it? Because the first, ask it once and you might get a veneer of an answer, but then you keep asking and you'll uncover different whys. And like we were talking about yesterday, is like some of the compromises you have to make and just to get a product to market, The why, well, that's just what we can do. That's the limitations of manufacturing.
It's an interesting question too, because when I think about design, it's just a series of solving problems. It's like product, non-physical, physical. It's like there's a lot of different ways to solve these problems, and through the design process, you can do that more effectively. And I think that's how I transition between different disciplines in a sense. But I
took a lot to people, especially in consultancy environments, around kind of resilience and curiosity and question, and especially when it comes to sales of keep going, don't have no fear. And it harks back to the time when, like, we're toddlers kind of learning to walk. We don't give up after we fall over once. We get up and try again until we get it. And I'm just thinking, with why, again, that harks back to the toddlers and the small children nagging their parents, like, but why? And it's so irritating, isn't it? And you just go, oh, because it is. But actually now as professional designers, it's like, well, actually I want to know, I want to get to the why.
Yeah. Don't lose that. I think there's an element of playfulness that's really important. That you can channel that inner. That it is also the fresh pair of eyes that somebody comes in and fresh, and they're like, "Why are we doing it like this?" It's like those questions are magical. Bringing in a new intern on the team, somebody brand new on the team, and they're like, "Hey, I'm gonna ask the stupid question. Why are we doing it like this?" And then it kind of helps other people break out of maybe the patterns they've been in. And that's another superpower of designers, I think, is just being kind of these disparate things. Sometimes maybe there's a thread of ADHD in there, combining things that are a little bit random at times, and that's a really powerful way to look at things, to be able to connect those dots in ways that are kind of novel. And
no, it's I don't think we've dived as deep into why so far in series, but I enjoyed that kind of intro. So we could go off on a complete tangent. Let's keep it about
design philosophy. Let's go for it.
So your career journey then. So you started off with, is it interning with GSK in UX?
That was one of my first corporate gigs, let's say that, because I was doing a lot of freelance contract work before for like years. As like a teenager, I was the kid that couldn't go to the offsite because my mom had to drive me there. So that was when I was in my contractor phase as a teenager. And then GSK, I started as basically an interaction designer before the word interaction design started, because I was in the graphic design world, developing internal systems. It was very boring. I did not like it. I realized at that point, this is not what I want to do with my life. That comes full circle later because now we do UX. So
it's kind of bookended your career at the moment, isn't it? So, but you spent. So you did like your 3 years with the GSK. You moved very quickly after that into kind of Delta full sit. So kind of And you've not strayed too far really over the years, have you, from kind of the water movement, taps, kind of faucets, bathroom products?
Yeah, it's been over 20 years now. It's just kind of crazy to think about too. So basically right after I graduated college, so I was doing interning at GSK. I got a full-time job there. I was kind of getting in that cushy mode. I had graduated college, realizing that this wasn't the path. Like, I wanted to make physical things. My degree was in industrial design. I wanted to do industrial design. And I had a really chaotic portfolio right out of college because I just did so many different, I had like soft goods. I had this hardware product. My heart was in hardware, consumer hardware goods. Like, at the time, this is 2003, 2004. I wanted to design cell phones and appliances, like hard consumer goods. And there aren't actually a ton of roles that do that, especially for a junior designer coming right out of school who had zero practical industrial design experience, but a lot of digital experience. And somebody at Delta Faucet saw my portfolio online, called me up. I had just actually registered for graduate school, so I was planning to go to grad school. I think it was actually in the parking lot after registering for classes for grad school when I got the call to come to Indianapolis and interview. And I was like, well, that might be my dream job. I never had thought of plumbing before, but little did I know at the time they were actually expanding into some of the first commercialized digital faucets, like the touch faucets, some of the earliest. So I worked on some of the very early kind of iterations. It was kind of one of my first projects was, redesigning some components of this touch faucet. It was very CAD heavy. It was very, very CAD heavy. And I dove headfirst CAD. It was sort of digital sculpture. It's kind of where I was excited. But also the tool we used had a very steep learning curve. So I spent a lot of time. I used Creo. Majority of Creo.
Like Wildfire or something.
Yeah, at the time I was Pro Engineer. Very early version, Pro Engineer 2001, which had like none of the, it was all like point clouds to do anything complicated. So I learned how to do really complicated surfacing in a very rudimentary tool. But yeah, it was a really interesting journey into the plumbing industry. And when you start at Delta, you kind of go through a plumbing school. So you sweat pipes, you learn everything there is about plumbing, and plumbing systems are really complicated. There's a lot to them. Sealed systems, faucets are incredibly complicated when you see what's inside of them, the valves, the tolerance stack up. So there's just it's a whole world. It's not just faucets, it's kitchen and bath products. So anything in a bathroom, anything in the kitchen. You're talking bathtubs, toilets, vanities. We did lighting. We would do all sorts of products. So yeah.
And that was, you said Indianapolis, so that was a bit of a relocation.
It was.
From North Carolina?
Yeah. Yep. So I moved across country, and then Delta's owned by Masco. Yeah. So they opened, at some point, they had a global design studio. Everything's changed since then. And the global design studio was cool because it was connected to other products outside of plumbing. So spent some time in the plumbing world, went up to Chicago, and, hot spring spas. Watkins Manufacturing does hot tubs. So would work with the teams and the hot tub teams. They did a lot of interesting work and components. We had the Aero Fastener at the time, so there would be a few like power tool projects here and there. I still did a lot of plumbing work. We worked on some Target home brand products that were like home hardware. But yeah, a variety of different things.
Did you know when you took the job, did you know how varied it might turn into?
No. And I kind of, when you're coming out of school, you're also like, I'll do anything that anybody lets me do. Like, just let me do something as a student. And sometimes when I talk to students today, it's sort of like, it's really important to do something that you're actually passionate about. And if those two things can mash up, that's great. And I think I never would have thought that the plumbing industry or like home and kitchen and bath hardware was a place where I would find like a really strong interest and passion, which is funny because many years later, I'm like, I love this industry, and I really missed it when I left briefly. I was, I missed that world, and so.
It's interesting, because I speak to a lot of, spoken to a lot of juniors over the years, and they're, precious about their first job. They don't know. It's a lot easier nowadays with research and whatnot, but they don't know what they don't know. They don't know much about the companies, and I think some will turn down opportunities because on paper, it's just another plumbing company. But actually, when you throw yourself into it, it can turn into so much more. We've had that come up a few times on the podcast where it's like, don't discount the boring or the less glamorous. Because they're the ones where you're going to learn a ton of stuff.
And bring your perspective to this thing. I think that's the other thing is there's, you can just do the job on paper, what you're told to do, and then you can kind of push a little, you can be like, well, I've done my job, but then there's this idea, and how do you kind of upsell that within an organization?
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Sometimes you're not going to get people to buy in, but you can help people. It's a stepping stone to other ways of thinking. Sometimes you can even tell yourself, hey, this might just be a portfolio project that I really love, even if it's not a core duty of yours at your job. But I think there's something special about that. Like my best projects were not the ones that were assigned to me. They were ones where I was like, I'm going to do this anyway. And I'm just going to present it as an aside, like, hey, I did what you asked, but also I did a little bit of this, and I'm just going to set it on my desk on the side until somebody notices.
How did that go down?
It's actually funny because those have been the top seller. Honestly, one of my best performing kind of top selling products, not collections that I did back then, which I felt like was kind of a golden era. It was sort of sitting collecting dust for about a year because it was a little bit extreme at the time. It's a twisty faucet called Virage. And it's a beautiful, it's a kind of an iconic collection, and it's always did very, very well. And it, got knocked off, what a great, like other companies knocked off that style. It was kind of funny.
So you developed that in your kind of spare free time. It was
part, yeah, it was like at the time, the way we did projects, it was kind of like a theme, and then we designed within a theme. And so I had other safer designs. We would take them all to testing. But this one in particular was very like a statement piece, and it was like on the border of outside of the realm of normal. But for the particular brand at the time, it was a new luxury brand. It actually made a lot of sense. And but actually I think what happened at one point was somebody was on a tour and they got really excited about it. And then I think once they saw customer buy-in, that changed the story a little bit. And I think that's another superpower with design research is finding your customers who are really excited about this particular product, whatever it may be. But when you can showcase that and you say there are people who need this and want this, it's not just, on paper, it's there are customers for this, and how you can prove that. That's maturing that way of proving that is really, I think that's like how I ended up in Kickstarter land, for example. Do we have a customer?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So years ago, I was with clients in England, Wolf Richards. I don't know if the brand was made over here, but it's an iconic kind of British kind of homewares brand. But every one of their products up until a point was you had to plug it in. That was almost the only kind of criteria, I'd say. I'm probably doing them a disservice, but the design manager that was showing me around, head of design, he showed me this non-electronic device. It was a toasty maker, and it was a one that you could make a toasty, either like a grilled sandwich, pop it into this kind of clamshell. It was bright orange clamshell, and then you pop it in the microwave.
I think I've seen these,
But some of the young kind of designers had kind of pitched this to the leadership. It's like, no, it hasn't got a plug. It's not in the Morphy Richards range. So what they did was they kickstarted it.
That's funny.
And they kind of did this self-funding it on the side. And then once the orders started coming in and they kind of overachieved, then the leadership kind of went, maybe it can be in the Morphy Richards kind of range. They've done a range of them, which are super successful.
It's really funny. It's a really good example, actually.
But back to your journey then. So aside from a kind of a brief departure from water, it's predominantly been kind of water-based products, hasn't it?
Even when I went to Contigo, right after I left Masco, I spent a couple years Contigo brand beverageware. So it's very housewares driven,
very kind of connected.
But it's still beverage. It's like I was actually working in filtration and like water infused, so kind of like health and some entertaining type products. But it was funny because they're still sealed systems, just like a faucet. So when you think about Contigo is really known for being like leak proof and they're really over-engineered products. Actually, it's kind of like the most over-engineered coffee mug you might ever find. And this, at one point in time, was the most popular coffee mug brand around. And now we've got like the Stanley craze, and there's always been sort of like Nalgene bottles and the different like Hydro flasks. It's funny to watch the kind of beverageware industry now that I've left it, but it's similar. The problems that you encounter with like a plumbing system or a sealed beverage container on the go, with like needing a locking mechanism, or like how do you clean it easily, and there's a lot of like interesting nuance there. And Contigo is known for their auto seal buttons so that you don't spill it, so there's a button to drink, but there's a couple other they're just doing interesting ways of consuming a beverage. So it was just it was actually really nice, because it also was a little bit more of a faucet you install, you're going to have it for 20 years. But a Contigo product, you might it's not that they're seasonal, but they would have a little more like of a fashion accessory element as well. So you might do like a Target collection that has, maybe it's a seasonal Target collection in a certain colorways. So there's a lot of like CMF type stuff, which I also find very interesting. So that was a really nice add in an area that I hadn't really explored much in that sense. So I learned a lot at Contigo. I worked for a really great team. My boss at the time was amazing. Like I really enjoyed my little stint there in the housewares world.
And it's also a good lesson in anyone that's kind of thinking about taking up a role and wondering, am I going to be kind of siloed or typecast, for want of a better term. Actually, there's always something that can transfer you out into another industry or a similar kind of.
I was at a conference, somebody was talking about, you might be in an industry or have kind of like a, I don't know, like you said, get typecast in a certain way. But when you take a step back and you look at, back to problem solving in a design way, it's not necessarily the thing, it's maybe the process or the way that you've approached something. And you can kind of back out of, if you're, thinking through your career journey and like, okay, now what do I do? You might, reframe what you did. I think this is a good portfolio skill, is to be able to say like, there's a practical thing of what I did, but then the purpose of it, or how I did it. It's like the storytelling of, it wasn't just a new housewares product. It was a new way to drink water, or a new way to, keep hydration on the go. But you can kind of reframe these back to philosophical design thinking. but it's true. It's like not necessarily the thing is not necessarily the story all the time. It's like what you did. So you can help tell that, like, I can do that in other industries. You can apply it to other industries. Back to being fearless, go for it.
Absolutely, And I've spoken to a lot of people recently about the value of design, industrial design in particular, and different areas of business and industry, and having, design leadership.
So important.
The table. At the end of the day, you're problem solvers and storytellers. And that's what most businesses really need.
To have somebody there to just stop, kind of. Just to ask, honestly, to ask, like, come on, this is funny. But I've seen this even in where we are today. You can kind of stop and say, well, hold on, what is the problem that we're solving for? And is this the way to do it? Or if this is the way to do it, maybe how we get there, we can think through and just solve that problem in a way that's maybe a little non-traditional, that's going to get you a leg up on things. And I think that's, I've had a really awesome opportunity to be involved early on in what I'm doing now. And I have an amazing team, and they're all even in, everybody's coming from different disciplines, but it's a very creative team. And sometimes I'm extreme, like I will go to an extreme level. And I always tell people, like, you can tell me to back it down a notch, but I'm going to go there and then back down, because I want to get us here so that we don't end up in the middle of boring town here, to do something a little different. And I had this theory at one point of like, if this is the normal accepted like circle of acceptance, and like the middle is the most average you could imagine, and then as you get closer to this border, it gets more and more novel, or more and more different, more and more risky. And then like we talk about like high art or fine fashion, it's like outside of the circle, completely bonkers. The more bonkers you get, the further out of the circle. And like I thought this was a new idea. It turns out like Raymond Loewy or somebody came up with this theory early on. I was like, oh, that's not a new idea at all. But if you can kind of hit that sweet spot outside of the border, or kind of like on the edge, where you're not so extreme but you're not so boring, and you're kind of doing something interesting and new, you can apply that method to like an aesthetic thing, or a new way of making a product, or a completely new industry that's never been, maybe it's a completely new innovation. So it's kind of a funny way of like you can be here, or you can push a little more extreme. And if you can get your team comfortable with thinking that way, that's cool. Yeah.
It's a lot less crowded outside the Zoom as well,
Yeah.
isn't it?
And there's more risk. I mean, there's more risk. You might be more niche, but yeah, there's balance. There's balance.
Yeah, but I mean, again, harking back to conversations I've had over the last week, it's, you could play it safe and then have a hard time because you're one of hundreds.
Me too. Yeah, what makes you different? Yeah, commoditized.
And there's always a buyer out there for your stuff. You just got to know where to look and how to kind of storytell and get them excited about it. Even there's a guy I know that makes these $125,000 watches, and there's a market for it.
There is.
It's kind of crazy, but there's a market for it. So let's talk about Hydrific. Yeah. But before that, let's talk about the LIXIL connection, because correct me if I'm wrong, but you joined LIXIL first, and then Hydrific was like a venture spin out.
Yeah.
But,
so right after Contigo, this is 2014.
Yeah.
I got the offer from American Standard. So American Standard at the time, I think Bain Capital had. It was sort of. I knew I was still in the plumbing industry enough to know that was a interesting change, and this was something where my hiring manager, who ended up hiring me at American Standard, was like, we have the chance to rebuild this brand, and that was really exciting. Okay. Like that I think that caught me. Because we kind of done that in my Masco days, my Delta Faucet days, and then to have a chance to do that with this heritage brand, American Standard brand, 150 years of like legacy, some incredible just cool stuff. I mean, they were pioneers 150 years ago. Plumbing was a new industry. Like indoor plumbing was, people didn't even have that, for many, many years. So it was kind of an exciting prospect. So joined American Standard, and then not a couple years later, LIXIL bought the American Standard brand assets in the U.S. So that was exciting because we were now part of this global organization with other sister brands. We have our Grey brand, and it's just, again, back to having a lot of, new resources, new team, new ways of being integrated into a bigger organization. And so I worked on a lot of core American Standard products. There's a luxury brand, DXV. So again, just kind of channeling a lot of the stuff that, doing a lot of retail work for big box retailers, and a lot of new like platform development. I worked on a lot of like platform optimization, which maybe is not as, the outside stuff, but the outside stuff is so dependent on what's going on the inside. If you can create a modular platform that works for all of your future designs, that was kind of the idea. Like, let's have the platforms that make designing for the future flexible. And that was something I was also very excited about, to unlock these future designs. So a lot of the stuff that kind of got set up, there's just tons of cool stuff on the market now that's like hopefully benefiting from that. So all of my colleagues who now design over these platforms, it's really exciting. Yeah. So, and I work very closely with our mechanical team too, oh, can't we make that a little thinner so that we can make like a very thin, imagine the smallest diameter you can to get that waterway in there. And thinking like, oh, if we make that modular here, then we can do L shapes, this shape, any shape, so, but kind of thinking through that as a system. But yeah, and then, COVID happened, and LIXIL had been working with the Tuck School of Business on kind of like leadership training for like innovation projects. And out of that came a relationship with Mach 49, which is like a Y Combinator for corporations. Yeah. So they do startups, venture startups inside of a corporation. They find, candidates who might be good for that, cross-functional. So we have, when we did this exercise with Mach 49, we got taken out of our everyday jobs. It was people from all over. There were 5 of us originally, all from all different walks of life, engineering, sales, marketing, and then I was the design. So it was really a really cool cross-section of people from globally all coming together in this venture and blank sheet of paper. I mean, our mission was water sustainability. What are we going to do with water sustainability? Starting from zero, starting from scratch. We did not know what we were going to do or where this was going to lead us. And the process we followed was kind of a classic design thinking process of find the pain, do a ton of interviews, talk to people, prototype ideas, test those prototypes, learn, pivot, update assumptions, start with a ton of hypotheses, validate or invalidate them. And I mean, just following this process it was so powerful. It was kind of like a dream come true to be able to do this and start by following what do people need, where is there a pain, and yeah, that it was a really incredible process, and it was about 6 months with the initial venture incubation period. Okay. So yeah.
So that was still very much LIXIL. You were exploring it, and then it kind of found the idea.
Yeah. So we were essentially, we kind of treated ourselves like a Shark Tank. So our independent team, we had like a venture board that we pitched to, kind of in a Shark Tankish style. Oh, cool. But we were really independent. I mean, that was kind of the Mach 49 methodology, is step away, be your own, kind of get the isolation and not protection, but the ability to really explore unencumbered. And then essentially we had our VC pitch that we put together, tons of validation that we went through. I mean, we had several concepts other than the one that we ended up essentially pitching. But this was the one. Every other idea or concept or thing to make an impact in water sustainability, we needed this base level. It was very clear before you could do any of these other things, you needed what ended up becoming Droplet. Yeah. You needed the kind of the brains of the operation first. So everything kind of, once we realized everything laddered out of this, and also we had to start somewhere small, and this was to call this small is a gross mischaracterization, but we had to start with understanding what is happening in a home. Like, we can't save water with any of these other things if we don't have help people manage water today better. And there was so much opportunity in this space. So that's kind of how we ended up where we are now.
That's really cool. So are there other kind of hydrifics kind of that have been spun out for LIXIL through that same process as well?
Yeah, well, there are a couple other initiatives, I believe, but ours is sort of the most, I would say, independent version of it. So, I mean, essentially we're, parent company LIXIL, we're kind of our own entity. We're more of like a team within LIXIL at this point with our first kind of branded product. But yeah, we're sort of still, we're still very early on. So kind of, how do we operate and how does this product fit in? Because it's very different from the core. Like, we're not a core plumbing product. But the amazing part is LIXIL makes all of these water delivery products in your home. And now we can provide people with a way to, hey, what's going on with that 45-minute shower my teenager just took? Didn't realize the garden hose was left on. So all of these, maybe somebody leaves a bathtub on. You want to talk about water damage in a home. That's there's a lot of cost in water damage in a home. And if we can help people make better choices, or maybe they don't realize they have a broken old toilet, now we can tell them and tell them what to do. That's the other thing we uncovered in research. People don't know what to do. And now we can have this education tool to let people know what to do. That was a major finding from our early incubation, is just, how does anything I do help? I don't know where to start. So there's a ton of these kind of things we can solve with a product like Triplet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey guys, just a quick one for me and then we'll get straight back to the episode. If you've ever felt like your pipeline is keeping you up at night, or you're not quite sure where to go next in your design career, and what you really want is to feel more in control of your business, your pipeline, your next move, maybe even be the person your peers or competitors look to and think, they're onto something, then check out the Why Design community. It's full of founders, leaders, engineers and designers working in hardware and physical product development. We share insights, run online and in-person meetups, collaborate on projects and help each other figure out what's working and what's not. If that sounds useful, head over to teamcodu.com/events to sign up. It's free, low pressure and genuinely made for people like you. Okay, let's get back to the episode.
We're talking yesterday about the journey, and it's going from having like the physical product that works, but then you've got all this data that you're tracking now, and how do you communicate that? And I guess the next step is gamify it as well, if we're looking at the 50-litre home, but that's fantastic. So I'm not sure whether if you want to do a show and tell for those that are watching the episode. If you're not watching, get on YouTube. We'll do little shorts of this as well. But yeah, we're going to do a little unboxing, I think.
Yeah.
So
I brought one in.
from the factory.
Yeah, this was so we did a Kickstarter last year. And this is our first product. This is the first pack. So another fun thing, right? I guess it's design packaging.
Yeah.
Also, as the
graphic design days.
Yeah. So we have our little startup card, a little note from our CEO, and the product itself is a very part of what we did as a kind of a mini design team on this project was establish a set of brand values, essentially product values. So, clear, transparent. So it's like the sea glass. Yeah. Very simple, transparent, this idea of transparent, this idea of simple, clear, trustworthy. Like we want to make sure people feel like the data is, we want to make sure that it's easy to understand, but it's also technically robust.
Yeah.
So how do you make something, and this is, honestly, this is an incredibly complicated product. And how do you make this kind of information easy to understand? And I think that was kind of our hardest challenge with this. But also there's a lot of technical issues with how do you fit a variety of different pipe sizes. So there was just a ton of physical design challenges. But essentially you just clamp it on your pipe. The light turns blue. It was basically an orange light when you plug it in. It means it's not getting a signal. You plug it in, it turns blue. It has all these little fun water jokes built in. I don't know if you noticed the packaging. It's actually water waves turning into sound waves. And if you look at where it's over top, the sound waves going through the pipe. And so there's just a lot of little hidden jokes, I would say, in this. It's sort of a river rock inspired design.
You definitely get the designers kind of appreciate that. Maybe not the everyday kind of landlords, but
right. The flaps of the waves here to kind of keep it, which are also functional because it keeps it safe during shipping. And then
and it's all cardboard. There's no plastic.
Yeah, it's all
there.
recycled.
Yeah.
That was another component. Is we wanted to. I mean, we're talking about water sustainability. It needs to be. Packaging is a good example, but also it's refurbishable. So we designed it with circularity in mind. So that was another thing I was very, kind of passionate about. This is a really easy product to refurbish, to assemble, we make it in the US, so it's local. Again, like a little bit of logistics wise, we're not spending a lot, to get this into people's homes. We're only in the US right now. But yeah, there's just, there's these little waves built in. There's a little seashell feature that's kind of hidden in here, the sea glass thing.
That,
yeah, so it's just kind of, when you have a lot of, things you're trying to solve in kind of a fun, cute way to also make something, not just a boring tech product. I'm so tired of boring tech products. So to have something with a little more personality, maybe that's my own little sneaky.
It was great. We when you gave me the tour of the studio yesterday, we had you showed me the piece of sea glass. Matches the color really nicely, and it's but you'd had that for some time, hadn't you? That bit of sea glass.
Yeah, I grew up in Seattle before we moved to North Carolina, and we lived on the Puget Sound basically when we were kids, and pick up sea glass and seashells. And when I was back home not too long ago, I found my Care Bears lunchbox full of my treasures from childhood, and I could not believe the sea glass pieces that I had found that were I mean, you could probably scan it and it's identical colorways. I was kind of shocked, in the same little seashell design, and I'm like, funny, somewhere back in there was this stuffed away. But so I brought it into the office and was like, this is so funny, because this dialing in the CMF was a whole process in itself. This is a custom, cool, very light, cool gray color in the sea glass color. We went through so many iterations on that too, the production team, and it was like, it's too green, it's too opaque. Aqua's a tough color, but and even the texture of it, we dialed in this kind of soft texture, this kind of the river rock texture. This is the X-ray version, so you can see what's going on the inside. Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, I kind of want to commercialize this transparency. The idea originally was to be a little bit retro with the translucence of this, to highlight the technology inside, back to kind of, make it simple and approachable, but know that there's technology built in that's really powerful. That was kind of the original idea. But this is fun. This is very retro. We joked a lot about this being IMAX, or my first cell phone in college. But
absolutely. But you can see, I mean, the we were talking about bill of materials yesterday. Yeah. Especially not having screws in there. It's a simple product. It's sustainable, but with a minimal bill of materials, cost effective to manufacture as well.
And thinking about it from day one, working with the mechanical team, it's like, well, I know we don't want to have a ton of assembly. We want to make sure that the draft, I built in the draft from day one, that it could be like a stack up. It's funny when you want to think about, like, again, back to the platform, manufacturing a platform that can be flexible for the future, or make, something that's going to be easy to assemble or very straightforward and not too overcomplicated, not too many components. When we know we want to keep the costs low, that was another thing for this type of high-tech product. We didn't want to be a $500 sensor like some of the other products on the market. We wanted to be the most affordable, the easiest to install. We wanted this to be just a no-brainer. It's like a must-have for your home. It's it's a Fitbit for your home. It's a a health tracker for your home, and the pipes of your home, or like the vein in your body, are they healthy? And now we can see. So, yeah.
That's fantastic. So, am I right in thinking that this is available now? It's no longer pre-order?
Yeah, we launched at CES in Las Vegas in January 2025. Yeah. We had the Kickstarter the year before. We had just started shipping right before CES. We really didn't start. We had batches and we kept selling out. Yeah. So we had the original Kickstarter batches that we were kind of ramping up production, and then it really was about 3 months ago that we've been selling direct. Essentially you order it, we ship it from the factory. So but it's we're just getting started with this, and it's gotten a lot of great coverage. We had a lot of great coverage at CES. We had a cool demo because it's ultrasonic, so it's reading through the pipe wall. It feels a little magical. Like, how people often ask, the first thing they go is like, wait, how does that work? I don't understand. How do you clamp it on and it can do anything? But imagine like a medical ultrasound reading through, your body. It's basically the same idea. So, yeah.
Yeah, you showed me a cool video yesterday on the company Instagram page, I think.
Yeah.
That gives a really good kind of demonstration of that. So go check that out. But how does it feel then to go from, pre-order to buy now?
It's like real. I know. Yeah. It's been such a journey, and every test, this is one of the scary parts, is you're like, we did all these small validations along the way. Like, did we build up the pre-order list? Launching a Kickstarter, we had a whole campaign to get the Kickstarter backers. They're really exciting community who wants to, integrate this in their smart homes. So we're working on an API access is coming very soon, and building all the correct features that are really needed. And there's just so much, when you are building this product of, getting it in front of people, getting feedback, and doing, NPS and CSAT scores and all these kind of metrics. And when it keeps coming back really high, and you keep getting kind of exceptional numbers, and you're thinking like, is this true? Are people really going to buy this? And to see that we, our Kickstarter hit its goal within 11 minutes, and we, went 1,000 times over what we had, we went way over what we were expecting. Like, our kind of expectations for the Kickstarter, really, that was another data point. It was just another data point that there is a need for this. And then as we kind of get out there and scale, just looking at the, people who get excited about this kind of product, why hasn't there been something like this out here before? And there are some similar things, but this is a very unique version of what we've kind of done here. Yeah. And again, listening really closely to people who need, and that's the other thing, is we're really connected closely with people who are buying this and wanting to buy this, all the questions they're asking, really good clues to what we should be developing. So continuing to listen and follow the community of people who are using this to help fit their needs. I think that's the other thing, is like, we didn't just do this one thing. Once you get the hardware, all the software is still build into to leverage what's there with the hardware. So it's a really cool product, because it's not just like the faucet that you install and you just put it in for 20 years and you never touch it again. You install it, and now you've got an app that can do all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And so that's the exciting part, is it's like the journey is just beginning. Like, we are just getting started with the first iteration of this. We've already actually released 2 major app updates. We actually just released a patch today. That's very exciting. We brought some new stuff on board. So it's fun, because it's kind of never ending. Back to the UX component. It's not just the hardware. There's also this digital component. So
that's the bit that just go in. And I speak to a lot of startup founders and leaders that, you'd never really know how the product's going to perform. You can do all the testing in the lab, and you can give it to your friends and family and test out the prototype, but until it's in the hands of customers, until they break it, and the different ways that they break it, you don't know, do you?
And the things that they're expecting. I mean, I think that's the thing too, is looking at it for the first time and people ask these questions, you're like, that's such a great point. And like even keeping like the touch points in the app, like here's our app. It's a very meditative, I don't know.
Yeah, you can see that there, yeah.
So the top, we have this really meditative wave. It's surface level. And the whole concept, even back to the water, kind of the water themes, when you dive deeper into the breakdown of the information, and as we add more components here, you deep dive into the ocean. So again, you get like the surface level summary of what's happening. And then, you can dig in deeper into the data. So if I go, let's say, even like to the year view, I can go back in time and see all of the usage for different years. And then you can dial in and dig into the data. And as you dig in, you kind of dig deeper into the ocean. So it's thematically part of what I've been trying to do with this is it's not just, it's every touch point. Every touch point kind of tells the same story of whether it's the app or when you buy it or the packaging or the physical product itself. You've got this kind of water experience that kind of has this theme all throughout, and it makes you, I mean, I want to make it kind of fun. Like I want the app to be kind of fun. I want the packaging to be fun. It's, Do
you get a wave when someone flushes the toilet?
See, okay, I can't show these screens because we're working on them right now, but there are some really fun things that we're building in. So that, we're like, let's do some funny, but using an app or using, it's very utilitarian. A lot of plumbing stuff is very utilitarian, or even, health trackers. We benchmark a lot of like similar kind of tracking modalities that people use. And it's like, yawn, like I just, and we know this is a low interest category. A lot of people are just waiting for that leak alert to tell them something's going on, or they set, a setting a certain way. But it's, I would, when you talked about gamification, I think that's the starting point, is just make an engaging experience in the app that, might just be your boring water usage for the day, but can you make it a little more fun? What can you do to make this fun? And I think that's actually our challenge, is how do we keep it an engaging thing to make it a low interest thing more interesting, because that's another lever for getting people to help save water.
Yeah.
And this is something we learned from water utilities. They said the only thing that gets people to really do something is through humor. Yeah. Humor is a very powerful thing when you're, talking about sticking in people's minds. Yeah. And that was something that we're not Duolingo level like humor with our maybe we'll try that one day. But it's there's just something about not being just another boring box, and just utilitarian numbers on a screen. And that stood out at CES. I mean, people came by that didn't know what we were, and they just saw like our big splash. We had like a big wave. I got to design the booth, which was another fun thing. Is like a random aside. But people were like, I just saw you from across the room and had to come see what this was. And it, they're like, oh, how refreshing. It's not just like another, frosted aluminum box, So,
it has the potential to be super boring, doesn't it?
Yeah, and
but it's anything but.
You can research water monitors and go fall asleep, And they provide a really important thing, but it's like it doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to be boring. That's why this could be a little bit better. It could be a little more interesting. And my hypothesis is, if we want to reach a lot of people, we don't want just the kind of the tech. Right now, people who purchase new technology, they tend to be, I like to buy a lot of new tech and play with things because I'm a nerd, but most people, kind of don't, they're fast followers, or they're kind of like make sure other people vet it first before they'll jump on board. And if you can kind of win over both segments, or you've got kind of the leading edge people who are really critically looking at all the different information that you're providing, but then if you can kind of capture the hearts and minds a little more of like, people who might not care that much, it's maybe it's subtle, maybe it's like a not top of mind thing, you're not really cued in, but it's just a little something.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got me thinking. I mean, you could imagine another ring on the
I know. I'm like,
watch. You could have, like, I've got health insurance that rewards me if I do over 12,500 steps, or I like exercise every day, so I get free coffee, discounts on the gym membership and stuff. When there's big corporations that are pushing for, like Procter & Gamble, I think, doing the 50 litre home like challenge, and challenging their brands to how can we help our consumers reduce water usage. You know, you've got a tool there to monitor that and gamify it with rewards, you know, and at the right cost point, it doesn't become a utilitarian thing for the landlords anymore. It's for everyone.
Yeah, and that's what's kind of cool is, you know, making it work for these different segments in different ways to help. I mean, really, we talk about counting every drop as like kind of this tagline. It adds up fast. Like one leaky toilet. I mean, we actually had a couple of people who wrote in about the leaks that we've stopped. Yeah. And, you know, with certain amount, we can see now the volume, right? They can tell us, hey, this leak on my toilet, this was, you know, leaking a gallon every couple of minutes. Yeah. That adds up over 30 days. If you didn't see that until your water bill came, you might have had a $200 or $300 water bill quite easily. Yeah. That you just paid for this with one like leak, and to see these stories playing out in real life, you know, that's actually really cool. Yeah. And to do it in a way that's not, you know, I don't know, it doesn't have to be boring.
No, even the hardest of kind of the water utility kind of engineers. Yeah. There's still a person in there.
Yeah. But what's crazy about this particular product compared to anything else, even like there's a lot of smart water meters now, AMI infrastructure, they'll take a reading once a day, once an hour, once every 15 minutes. Yeah. Droplet takes a reading every 50 seconds, or 50 times a second. So it's like, it's high resolution information. So it's kind of like best in class technology, most affordable, like keeping not just easy and simple, but also like back it up with the data, back it up with the power of it. And that's sort of the marriage of the two. Like it can be both. It can be.
We also showing when and how much is used, as opposed to just this is how much you've used today.
Yeah, and you can see your live graph. I mean, you can see when you log in is water flowing or not flowing. And now once we have these sort of new API integration coming along with like Home Assistant integration, you're going to be able to build your own tools using this data to do all sorts of cool stuff. I would love to run a competition. Like, let's do a competition for people to build like
the LIXIL skills.
Oh, it would be so cool. Yeah. So but it's just really fun because also what other things could we do with this for what's useful for people? What do people? We have this magic wand question that we asked in the incubation. It would always be like our last question. We'd say, now that we've gone through whatever the topic was or the script or whatnot, I'd say, now if you could do anything, technically feasible or not, what would it be? Just use your imagination, magic wand. And you would hear the most fascinating stuff coming out of that. And it's like, how can we keep that idea going as we continue to build out this product? It's like, there's so many cool things you could do. So
yeah, it's a good question to ask as well, pinning it back to what I do for a living.
Yeah.
If you had a magic wand, what would you change about your current employment?
To
make it better, because then you'll start uncovering kind of where they, rather than like, oh, I'm looking for a new challenge, you then get into, well, if my boss turned into less of a
What, you don't get a refrigerator full of soda and a constant supply of chips? That's on the foosball table?
That seems nice, but
Well, I'd really be happy. No.
Well, it kind of tells you a lot about that personality of I just
That's true. Well, though, there is something about having an unlimited supply of snacks at the office that's very motivating.
Well, it's quite convenient for the employees. It also means that as an employer, being completely cynical, your staff are in the building ball, then they're not popping out on lunch.
Right.
It's like, productivity may have dipped, and we're all back in the office and we're not glued to our desk all the time. Get them sacks, keep them at the desk.
I have been bribed with packs of sugar for a Red Bull before. I know we got this big presentation and what is this 4-pack of Red Bull doing here? I'm going to drink all of them right now.
Send us pizza.
Oh,
yeah, we've got a crunch on. Everyone's here till midnight. So talk to me about the setup now where it's Hydrific, small, scrappy-ish kind of startup,
very much
super passionate startup, but within this larger global business. What's been the hardest thing about kind of building something new in something old and big?
Well, it is a little interesting with kind of our team's independence or kind of doing things differently. For example, onboarding new suppliers. There's like a whole supplier process that's typical within the typical structure. It's like we're doing something a little different, sourcing new suppliers, or even our our gate process, right? We had like a very kind of rigid gate process that I was used to going through new product development. You have to hit the gates. We were doing this agile scrum process. So it's very different, like take on what you can. And it's hard. It's hard then. How do you communicate dates when the dates are fluid? Yeah. So we kind of ended up now developing our own process and to be able to do that within a bigger organization as an experiment. We always approached this with, this may fail. Like we may fail. And in fact, we always hear it like fail fast, but this is true. I want to do a small test now, fail miserably and learn a lot from it. And we have had our moments. I mean, the whole incubation almost did not happen because we had to pivot kind of halfway through. And at one point we had a presentation before the bigger pitch of like, well, our initial theory didn't pan out. And so we're going to take what we learned and try something different. And we actually had, a moment where we're like this, we might not have something to pitch here if we don't tease this out a little more. But to have that independence in our team to be allowed to fail in a kind of a secure way is really, I think that there's something about that. And all these, sort of the Mach 49 line is these big corporations have all this talent internally, but how do you put them in a new situation to bring that out? And how do you empower that in a way that is trying new things? And it's scary for people. Like you kind of have to maybe select for a personality type that's going to be like comfortable with that. I think that's part of the process. I don't think everybody's, going to thrive in that kind of like insecure environment, but to build in the guardrails of, you've got the support of the larger org, you've got all the benefits, you've access to a lot of different things, but then to keep a little bit of isolation to where you are allowed to experiment in a new way. And LIXIL is an amazing incubator for that because that's a core tenet of there's like do the right thing, work with respect, and experiment and learn. And those are like the three core tenets of any LIXIL employee, any LIXIL, everything's based in these three things. And experiment and learn is like my lifeblood, this is the magic formula. Of course, working with respect is equally as important, and like doing the right thing is equally as important, but like to be able to experiment and learn to this high degree with sort of the bigger resources that you might be able to tap into if you need them, but then we have like the smallest budget, right? So we're trying to do a lot with a little. That's one of our core team tenets is how do we do a lot with a little? And that is a design challenge of itself. Like, how do I do a Kickstarter without a ton of resources? And, that's actually a really cool, like, I've got a lot of stuff that I can do as a designer. I can render stuff in Keyshot and create an animation and do an exploded view and play with all of the different like ways of, and I don't have to do photography. I could do a render, Yeah,
we're talking about AI, aren't we?
Doing
kind of playing around with that.
Back shots. I don't need to rent out a $50,000 studio. I can sketch it up in VizCom, render it exactly what I want, throw in the themes, like the themes for a product that follow our brand language, which is even better. And then, get an early sense of is this the right way for us or not? And then we can do the photography. So we actually are refreshing our photography right now. It's the same thing. Like, we just probably saved ourselves, several months of hassle by kind of having a better plan at the beginning in a smaller way. And that was actually a big learning too along the way of it doesn't have to be perfect. Like as a designer, I think we get perfectionitis. Like I struggled with this so much. And our venture lead, Atif is amazing. Atif is incredible. And it was like, Emilie, you see how your stick figure prototype drawing got the same feedback as the perfectly polished one? And I'm, yes. And he's like, you would have spent another week polishing this, wouldn't you? And I'm like, yes. He's like, you don't need to do that. Get the ideas fast, get a gut sense of where you're going, and then keep going. Don't waste your time doing all this. And that was such a in my brain, because that was the opposite of everything that anybody had ever done in our career. It always had to be exactly perfect all of the time, like this high level of craft, or you would never show an early idea scrappy. I'd do that for myself. I would never show like other people that, or let alone get feedback in a research session on time. It's not that bad, but it's, if I'm showing a black and white sketch versus a fully polished render, but that's the same idea, doing a lot with a little. You can learn before going way, way, way far. And then your sunk cost fallacy way down in the depths. don't fall into that trap, be more agile. And I think that was one of my biggest learnings actually with this whole thing is you can just really learn a lot with a little, like very quickly. Even the Kickstarter's a really, really good example of that. Yeah.
But you've got a great kind of marketing person as well, haven't you?
Yeah. So we've been building, that's kind of the exciting part of our team is, my core, working with, as a designer, thinking through what is the customer experience? What is our customer experience from discovering us on social media, learning about us more through our website, clicking that buy button, getting it in their home, installing it, the install process. We spent a ton of time on like making that a simple process. Again, it's very complicated, different pipes and conditions that you might run into. How do you make that seamless all the way into when you're using it? And so finding good people in these different disciplines. Dan is a great example of our new social media manager, just like telling the story of Hydrific. We work with a marketing consultant now that I'm like doing marketing, which is, something I've always watched other people own, but now having the ability to say, well, how do we talk about this? How do we communicate this? And then working with a really good marketing consultant to help craft that vision. It's like, this is amazing. Like, it's just so much fun. And then building a really wonderful UX team, like award-winning UX team, and just working with, maybe more, again, smaller independent people versus big agencies. This is another philosophy of ours. We're working with maybe a little bit more independent or, these smaller teams. And we're just like so close to it. And I think I never had that before. I was never so close to our buyer, so close to our team, no silos. Usually I'm in like my own little silo, kind of desperately trying to talk to other people in other departments. Like, hey, who's doing the packaging on this? Can we do this? You might get a little bit of that, but we're in it. Like, it's our team, and somebody, Diana on social media is going to be talking to the UX team about stuff, right? Yeah. We're not siloed. We're right there together.
You're right there as one team, aren't you?
And that's cross-functional, that cross-pollination is so powerful because you're hearing things that you might not have thought about from another perspective. So like that diversity of thought, that diversity of getting, and it's not all the time, you're on your job, you're doing your one particular thing, but then we have, weekly and bi-weekly kind of different mashups with the team to talk about what we've been doing. And then you hear from, oh, wait, you're doing this? We're going to do this. Let's, collaborate. I think it can be scaled up inside of an organization. We're growing, so we're already figuring out like, hey, how do we take what we had as a very small team and now do a much bigger team? So there's some growing pains there with figuring out how to do that because I can't do everything. Our other team members can't do any. We wore so many hats in the early days, but now it's more about focus and how do we get people to focus and not lose that magic. But yeah, it's interesting when you talk about trying these different things. Did that work? Try it for 3 months and then we call them retros, right? We do a retro and say, hey, what worked, what didn't work in a constructive way. Like, this really worked well. Let's do more of that.
Yeah, there's on time, something to be said about kind of having that small kind of team mentality, but within a larger organization as well. It's, we talked about it yesterday. I read Creativity Inc. Not too long ago. And I talk about it way too much on the podcast, but that idea of kind of having each product as its own production or movie, within the Pixar analogy there, but then pulling in externals from other teams.
So good.
For those kind of weekly or monthly kind of brain trusts to critique and feedback on the product and have that kind of sense of candor. So that we're just trying to move forward, and we're doing the best for the product. I think when you've got silos within bigger organizations, you're done with your bit thrown over the fence in the next department.
Never see it again.
Like I said yesterday, it's like I'm really disappointed with how the website turned out for that because they haven't touched it. So I think it's having that regular touch points across departments.
And it's cool. Like, I really love to hear from, like, if I were left alone to my own devices, things get weird. It's really helpful to have the balance of different, ways that people are thinking through things, because it's not just our little team might be a representative of a larger population that we're building towards. And if our team has, we call it dog fooding, you eat your own dog food. If our team has this question, people out there are going to have this question. So it's really like mind your own resources. And they're going to have a really great team. Our team is such a cool team. Like, we have a really cool, like, studio office team culture, and we're global. We're not just, we have our team here in New York. A lot of our software teams in Finland. We've got people all over the place in Europe and elsewhere, and so
it's really cool. We're rapidly running out of time. I could stay here for hours and talk to you. But in terms of just final thoughts, what are you most looking forward to in the next kind of 6 to 12 months?
Ooh, 6 to 12 months. Oh my gosh. Getting ready for CES again. What's next? We're doing so much stuff with this first product with Droplet here, and there's a lot of, roadmap stuff to happen, but this is just the start. So there's lots to come here. We're having a lot of fun with working with creators online. We're sending these out for reviews for the first time to get some real world, put it to the test. So I'm really excited to see that. But I think what I'm really excited about is it's not that this is done, because this is still going, but this is just the start. Yeah. So I'm super excited about taking this and just to the moon, So
amazing.
Yeah.
And finally, I stopped asking this for a while, but I got told off by Jordan Norman last week for not asking. So books or podcasts that you're reading or enjoying at the moment?
Oh gosh, I'm constantly researching, learning stuff. Which one that I really liked, which is a little bit older now, How to Start a Startup series from Stanford, actually. Really good. It's old. It's apparently Sam Altman running it. I didn't even know. When we watched it, yeah. Oh, okay. But these are 7-8-year-old content basically, but still very valid at Stanford. Yeah. But watching these early on, starting this gave me so many ideas. And it was funny realizing later that was Sam Altman. I was like, oh, ooh. But,
at the time, it's got all these things going on.
Yeah, I know. I didn't realize. But there's a lot. There was something else that, actually IDSA in the US here has a Vimeo channel that's really good, tons of previous really recorded stuff. Cool. So I like to go on there and just keep up with what's on there. I don't know. I like to browse the forums online about topics. That's my big thing. Stumble across something interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I like to go to a lot of meetups too. Not just content online. I want to go out. There's hardware meetups in New York. We're really lucky to have that here.
I timed my trip here terribly because it was last week or the week before, wasn't it? It was Tech Week and Design Week.
Yeah.
I'll do better next time.
Yeah, definitely come. Design Week's so much fun. Yeah. But
You go to the hardware meetups, do you?
Yeah. They're really Christina, who actually has a podcast for Make Lab that's really good, talking to other design and people working in the hardware space. And that's you just learn so much from other people trying to do, and we all have very similar. You can just learn a lot from just watching somebody else's presentation or talking about what you've been up to. And meet people oh, we had the same problem. Here's how we fixed it. Oh, here's our supplier that worked on that for us. And I think there's something to be said. It's it's tough, and talking outside of design. The one thing I've been trying to do is doing there's design and there's all this other stuff, entrepreneurial or hardware and women in robotics or whatnot, and just going out to different events and things and talking to people. But
it's super powerful just getting out to the trade shows, getting out to the events, but then the side events and hardware meetups have just started a few months ago in London as well. So I went to one, and you literally have a forum to talk to other hardware geeks about the hardware you're producing. Talk about timing. There's one there today, I think, in London. So on the other side of the planet, but
there's just so much content online that's still incredibly valid from a couple of years ago. Sometimes I'll just be on YouTube just searching for something else, and I'm like, wait, what is this? What is this gold mine of information? It's just it's hanging out here with 300 views. This is incredible. So I don't know. I like to stumble on stuff.
Awesome. Well, Emilie, it's been absolutely wonderful having you on the show. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
And joining me in this studio here. It's, look forward to catching up later.
Thank you. Keep asking why.
Keep asking why, yeah.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Why Design, proudly powered by Kodu. If you got something out of today's conversation, I'd love it if you could leave a quick review or share the episode with someone who will find it useful. It really helps more people discover the show. And if you're working in hardware or physical product development, Whether you're a founder, leader, engineer, or designer, come and join the Y Design community. We're running events, sharing insights, and connecting people who are building great things. You can sign up at teamcodu.com/events or just drop me a note on LinkedIn. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.